So JDF finally comes back to Dino Thunder. Hi everyone and welcome to another Ranger Rant. Of course everyone knows I'm Archer9234. Today I'll be discussing the Power Ranger Dino Thunder episode titled Fighting Spirit. Now this episode is loosely adapted from episode 40 of AVA Ranger. The only thing they really used was the monster footage at the end of the episode, but other than that, this entire episode was officially American made only. This episode is mainly famous because of the return of JDF and of course JDF fighting his past Ranger selves. Now, let me explain what was going on behind the scenes of why JDF was stuck inside his suit. Now, in the show, JDF was temporarily stuck in his suit for several episodes because originally when JDF was signed up to do Dino Thunder, in his contract, he said, at a certain point in the middle of the series, I have to return to California and to deal with his businesses. So, that's the reason why they had to write that side story for why he was stuck in his suit and not there. Although he was able to do his voice work for the character. The episode begins basically from a recap of the previous episode. Basically what happens is they discovered this special goo and they found that it had special properties that were able to reverse the Dino Gem problem with Tommy. So they attempted to use the goo and it successfully actually got him to demorph and it caused an overreaction to Tommy's powers and it basically caused Tommy to be invisible. While this was going on, Haley and Tommy were trying to devise a plan of what they could do. They were really unsure of what they could do because they needed a huge power source in order to figure out to counteract the Dino Gem's invisibility power. So at the last minute, Tommy suggested, well, why don't you use my Dino Gem? Haley said that this was too much, it was too powerful, and they were not sure what it could do, but unfortunately that was the only option they had. So while this is going on, Elsa and the unusual minions are digging up this weird gem that they were trying to find. And eventually Elsa uncovers the gem and returns it to Mesogog. When we finally return to the Dino Thunder underground lair, we find out that Tommy's officially going to be attempting to do this procedure and is being hooked up to the machines and whatnot. I also like to point out that on one of the machines, on the top of all the controls and stuff, this little gadget with all the lights and stuff is actually a reuse from one of Cam's gadgets from Ninja Storm. So after they finally get Tommy hooked up to the machine, they actually flip the switch. Unfortunately, while this is going on, some sort of overload happened and it caused the full power of the Dino Gem to go into Tommy's body and short out the whole system. Now the problem with this sequence is that while the shorting out was going on, Haley was just standing there and doing absolutely nothing. It took her like 2 to 3 seconds to actually, turn off the machine. It just didn't make any sense. It's like you were explaining to what was going on instead of turning off the machine and causing more harm to Tommy. Thanks to the Dino Gem, they finally were able to reverse the invisibility problem with Tommy, but unfortunately Tommy was unconscious and the Rangers didn't know what to do, so they actually had to send Tommy to a hospital. This is a rare occasion where we actually see, real life circumstances, hospital injury stuff in PR. Normally we don't usually see this. At most we'll see an injury and some bruises and, medical tape, but normally they're always at the base or hiding somewhere and they just get healed right away. When we head back to Mesogog's lair, we find out that the gem that Elsa has uncovered basically has a similar power signature to the Dino Gems and are able to absorb the power of the Dino Gems and cause them to short out. So she gives this mineral gem to the monster, he eats it and gets a power up and is immediately sent out to Reefside's hide and start attacking. While the Rangers are heading out for the situation, we finally find out that while Tommy's unconscious, he's actually fighting for his life inside his mind. We begin off in this weird desert. Tommy doesn't know what's going on, he's confused. And fans will also recognize this desert area was reused later in the 3-part Dark Wish miniseries for Mystic Force. While this is going on, Tommy sees this weird opening and is totally confused of what is going on. All of a sudden we see the red Zeo Ranger come out of nowhere. Tommy is confused. Tommy doesn't know what's going on. Basically asking what the audience is asking. What's going on? How could Zeo Ranger 5 be here? The powers were not usable at this point in time. They were somehow locked off or abandoned, but somehow we see the suit. I also like to point out that these are new suits made specifically for Dino Thunder. They're not using original suits made for Zeo. and the past suits later on in the episode. The main reason you can notice is that the clasps on the helmets in the older days were visible, while nowadays they're not, so they simply remove the clasps. I also like to bring up an argument that several fans always crop up in this episode. Everyone always complains that, why does Zeo Ranger 5 come out first? Wouldn't the Red Turbo Ranger come out first? This is Tommy's mind. This is his mind in a way of fighting off either the coma or the overuse of energy to keep him, in order to get his mind back to his body. And he accepts that the turbo powers were officially transferred to TJ and no longer accepts that I'm the Red Turbo Ranger. I'm really only the Red Zeo Ranger, White Ranger, and Green Ranger, and then now Black. While Tommy is fighting Zeo Ranger 5, we go back to the main Rangers that are fighting the monster inside the city. Unfortunately, thanks to the power-up of the special mineral gem, every time he strikes a ranger one at a time, they lose their powers each time. So they're basically trying to fight. At this time, they don't know what's going on. They're trying to fight with their bikes. But unfortunately, the first one to go is Kira. Kira, unfortunately, loses power and demorphs and doesn't know that her morpher has been shorted out. After that, we return back to the main fight with Tommy and the Red Zeo Ranger. He's basically having an identity crisis. The Red Zeo Ranger saying, you're not really good for what you're doing, you've been slacking off, while Tommy is he's struggling trying to fight him. But of course, Tommy still has his moves and still is trying to fight off the Red Zeo Ranger. After a while, Tommy does give the upper hand and actually defeats the Red Zeo Ranger, and he simply disappears in a streak of light. So Tommy resumes wandering around, whoa, what's going on? Why am I fighting the past Zeo Ranger? He eventually stumbles upon a forest area and doesn't know where he is and what's going on. And right then and there, the White Ranger comes out of nowhere. Now again, just like the Zeo Ranger suit, it is a new suit based off the original suit made for Dino Thunder. This suit is pretty much identical to the original design, although again, just like the updated Zeo suit, the clasps are missing, and on the back side, you won't longer see the belt clasp anymore in that angle. So while Tommy is fighting the White Ranger this time, we come back to seeing that the Red Ranger, Connor, finally loses energy from the monster, and eventually Trent comes in with his ATV, but at the wrong last minute, the monster overpowers him, makes Trent fall off the ATV and stumbles, and he loses energy. So the only Ranger that's still operational at this time is Ethan, and he uses his Trans-Tech cycle. He tries to do a decent job with the fight, but unfortunately enough, the monster jumps onto the Trans-Tech cycle and immediately shocks him and drains his energy. What was weird though, it only took like 1 second worth of energy drain in order to make the powers fill, but in this case, the monster drains like Ethan like 5 or 6 seconds longer than usual. I guess because he was using the Trans-Tech cycle and he had to absorb that power as well at the same time. So after Ethan got drained, he fell off and powered down. Now, at this time, they don't know what's going on, so they simply attempt to try to remorph up. When they try to hit their buttons, nothing's working, and then they basically find out, oh, great, the monster drained their energy. Now, they're basically totally defenseless. They could basically get killed right now, but the monster just simply goes away. That moment made absolutely no sense. There was no reason for the monster not to kill them. There was no main boss giving an excuse, well, let them, feel the defeat and other stuff and other excuses. It was just simply he just goes away, no explanation. There's no power limit on him, no nothing. This scene made no sense whatsoever. So the Rangers retreat back to Dr. O. But luckily enough, this conveniently happened at the right moment because Cassidy and Devin came in doing a story on the Power Rangers, and conveniently they had lost their powers and their identities were safe at this moment in time. So after a hard fight with the White Ranger, because, the White Ranger has Saba, he has his laser eyes, which we finally get to see. Unfortunately, Saba doesn't talk. He finally stops the White Ranger. But again, being its mysterious self, he disappears, and Tommy still doesn't know what goes on. And of course, everyone knows at this point who's going to be coming next. The Green Ranger finally appears by throwing his Dragon Dagger directly at Tommy. Now, I want to talk about the Green Ranger suit. Now, the Green Ranger suit, unfortunately, as the other two are, new suits updated for Dino Thunder, this suit has the least amount of accuracy to it. For some weird reason, there were several details, and one that was really obvious. I don't understand why they added to it. And the first detail that fans will notice specifically is that the Green Ranger has extra detailing on the dragon design on his helmet. This extra detailing was not actually in the original helmet design. There's this extra gray stripping added to make the dragon design a little bit more announced, so you can actually see it more. But on the original helmet, it was only the gem that was visible. Now, this design change actually kind of reflects about the design change in the episode with the monkey, where the monkey was trying to disguise themselves as a different ranger. This design was actually similar to what the mistake on that helmet design was. Other mistakes are the Dragon Dagger holster. Now, the Dragon Dagger holster was originally black in the Jew Ranger footage. In the MMPR footage, it was usually not there, poorly black thing, or just they were using the power blaster and not the Dragon Dagger itself as the holster. But in this case, it was the correct Jew Ranger design, but it was white. Next changes are the back of the belt clasp. They're simply blocked off so you can't see them, similar to later designs in the Operation Overdrive update of Adam's suit. They block it off. They're trying to make the suit look less spandexy and cheap. I don't understand why. The suits are spandex. They have zippers on the back. There's no point of hiding the belt clasps. Another major change that fans obviously notice is the power morpher. Everyone knows that Tommy's power morpher is gold. Unfortunately, they probably didn't want to spend the money on making a mock-up of the Gold Ranger power morpher, so they used the original Bandai America power morpher toy. Now, unfortunately, we never got the gold power morpher toy, so they were stuck with the silver power morpher toy, but they did make a proper Dragon Ranger coin. I don't understand why they made the Dragon Ranger coin, but not the correct gold power morpher. The next and final change to the suit is the Dragon Dagger tune. Now, this is Disney's fault because they didn't want to pay royalties, obviously, to Ron Wasserman, who's the composer of the theme on the Dragon Dagger tune. But also, they probably didn't want to also pay the royalties to the original Japanese composer from Jew Rangers, because Ron Wasserman simply reused the same exact tune from Jew Rangers, but updated it for American audiences instead of recycling the Jew Ranger tune itself. They simply opted out of it and simply got a variation that was similar to the Dragon Dagger tune, but it wasn't perfect. But also, there's one good news about the suit. This is the first time the U.S. Green Ranger suit actually has a show-accurate Japanese Jew Ranger shield. Now, the reason why the Green Ranger never had a correctly accurate Japanese shield was not because they were too cheap to pay for the design. What happened was that JDF basically said, and his stunt double said, I can't move in this suit, I can't act into it, so they made this cheaper shield in order to move better in the thing. So while Tommy is fighting the Green Ranger, the other Rangers are on next to him on his bed, trying to figure out what could they do for Tommy. They don't know what to do. He's still in this coma, fighting for his life. And we find out that the monster has returned back to Reefside and is attacking more people. And the other 5 Rangers say, screw it. They're going to go and fight the monster without their powers. And of course, Haley is like, what are you doing? You can't fight him this way. You have no defense whatsoever. So we go back into Tommy's head and we finally find out that he's fighting the Green Ranger. Tommy does most of his usual stunts, which is pretty good because most of the time we're seeing JDF himself fighting because, of course, he's an accomplished martial artist. But there are some moments where we're seeing a stunt double, unfortunately. I assume that's because of restrictions on nowadays for Disney and stuff. But he does most of his stunts, and we get this really cool moment where we finally get to see what is really going on. And we find out that Tommy is basically fighting for his life. He's trying to regain his mind back into his body and get out of the coma. But also at the exact same time, restore his black Dino gem that was destroyed and split up into 3 power sources. After Tommy defeats the Green Ranger, all the past Rangers, red, white, and green, come together and finally show him that you've passed your test, you regained your mind, and you also were able to restore your black Dino gem. While the Rangers are currently trying to fight off the monster and they have no chance of winning because they have no power for their suits, Tommy finally wakes up, opens his eyes, opens his hand, and he sees that his powers have been restored. So he wakes up and gets out of the hospital immediately and heads up to the other Rangers. We finally get this big dramatic moment of Tommy's finally return. He fights the monster for a little bit, and finally morphs after several episodes. We also finally get to see for the first time Tommy's Super Dino mode. Now I want to talk about Super Dino mode in Dino Thunder and Super Dino mode in Aba Rangers. In Aba Rangers, it was a power-up like it is in Dino Thunder. However, this power-up was immediately introduced right away. It wasn't like this epic moment and like it's done in Dino Thunder where Connor was the first to unlock it. No, it was immediately used right away when they got their powers. And it was already immediately seen in the first episode of Aba Rangers. Asuka was immediately able to use Super Dino mode. Well, in this case, Tommy was the first time to unlock his Super Dino mode in this episode. So Tommy uses his Brachio Staff and destroys the monster with his usual energy orb move and blows it up, releasing the powers to the Dino Gems and restoring Trent and everyone else's powers to their morphers. Now, as usual, the monster grows big, and the main Rangers head off to fight the monster. Now, the weird part is there's no explanation of why the White Ranger doesn't help them. Obviously, they're dealing with the footage from episode 40 of Aba Rangers, because at this point, the White Ranger, Aba Killer, and Aba Ranger was not good at this point, and he was still evil. So he would never fight. It never helped them in a fight at all. So Trent, for some unknown reason, is just not helping them at all. Obviously, Tommy doesn't help because he has the Brachiosaur, and that's only an auxiliary Zord, and there's no reason for him to be there to fight. So when the Rangers finally defeat the monster, we finally go back to the main base, and Tommy finally actually, discusses what was going on in his head, and everyone was all shocked, like, you were fighting past Rangers yourself, going, oh my god, and we were having this funny moment for the end of the episode. Overall, I have to give this episode 3.5 out of 5. There are some moments of the episode I didn't like. For example, the monster not finishing off the Rangers. There was no explanation at all whatsoever, just none. But the main focus of the episode, and of course some of the inaccuracies to the suit designs. I mean, they spent the money to make new suits instead of trying to find stored suits. I assume the older suits are in storage somewhere. There's got to be, but they spent the money to make the suits, but unfortunately they didn't spend a little bit of extra time to complete the details. I don't understand why they thought it was good to add the silver area on the Dragon Ranger helmet. It didn't make any sense. It's like, that's an obvious mistake that stands out the most. The other ones are least noticeable, but it's still, they shouldn't have been done. Did you guys think this was a really good, interesting episode that showcased Tommy's past Rangers and his accomplishments? Or do you think it was too much of a fan service to Tommy fans, like, oh my god, he was the greatest Ranger of all time, and this? What do you guys think? Again, leave your suggestions below, of course, for future episodes you would like me to review. Next week, I'll be reviewing Stranger Within from Power Rangers Mystic Force. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys right back here next week. So while Tommy engages the Red Zeo Ranger in a fight, we go back to the main Rangers with red, blue, and green.